The smell hit me before I even saw the dumpster. I'd been walking the back roads near the industrial district, doing what I did every Tuesday and Thursday after my shift at the grocery store, checking the places where people dump things they don't want anymore. Old furniture, broken electronics, sometimes animals. This smell was different. It wasn't the normal garbage rot or the sour milk stench you'd expect from a dumpster behind a closed-down restaurant. This was organic, biological, like old cheese left in a hot car for a week, mixed with something fermented and wrong. I'm Martha, by the way. Martha Herschel. I'm 34 years old, I stock shelves for a living, and I volunteer at the Riverside Animal Shelter on weekends. I've pulled 3 dogs and 2 cats out of dumpsters in the past year alone. You'd think I'd be used to it by now, but my hands were already shaking as I approached the green metal bin. The smell grew stronger with each step. My eyes watered. I pulled my shirt up over my nose, but it didn't help much. "Please don't be dead," I whispered to myself. "Please don't be dead." I grabbed the edge of the dumpster and pulled myself up to look inside. At first, I thought it was a pile of garbage bags, black, lumpy, motionless. But then I saw the shape. 4 legs, a head, a tail. The smell intensified, making my stomach lurch. "Oh, God," I breathed. The dog was alive, barely. Her eyes were open, watching me with a dullness that spoke of complete resignation. She didn't move, didn't bark, didn't even whimper. Her skin was almost entirely black, not fur, but skin. Thick, crusty, elephant-like skin that had cracked in places, revealing raw pink flesh underneath. What little fur remained was patchy and greasy. And the smell was coming from her. I've seen mange before, I've seen neglect, but I'd never seen anything like this. "Hey, sweetheart," I said softly, fighting back tears. "I'm gonna get you out of there, okay?" She didn't respond, not even a flicker of recognition that I'd spoken. I climbed into the dumpster, gagging as the concentrated smell surrounded me. The dog was heavier than she looked, probably 50 pounds of muscle under all that damaged skin. I wrapped her in my jacket, trying not to hurt her, trying not to notice how the black crust felt under my hands. Getting her out took 10 minutes of careful maneuvering. By the time I had her in the back seat of my ancient Honda Civic, I was covered in the same greasy residue that coated her body. The smell filled my car instantly. I'd driven this route 100 times, but that 15-minute trip to the shelter felt like an hour. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, checking to make sure she was still breathing. "You're going to be okay," I told her, though I had no idea if it was true. "I've got you now. You're safe." The dog stared at nothing, her chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. I named her Elara on that drive. It means bright, shining one in Greek. Looking at her in that moment, covered in black, dying skin, smelling like rot, it felt like a promise, a hope for what she could become. I just didn't know if she'd live long enough to get there. The reaction at the shelter was immediate and visceral. I carried Elara through the back entrance at 7:43 p.m., just as the evening volunteer shift was starting. Linda was at the desk, processing adoption paperwork. She looked up, her welcoming smile already forming, and then the smell reached her. Her face transformed, nose wrinkled, hand flying to her mouth. "Oh my God, Martha! What is that?" "I found her in a dumpster off Industrial Boulevard," I said, adjusting my grip on Elara. "She needs help, bad." Linda stood up, taking a step back. "Martha, that smell. I know. I need to get her to the medical room." By the time I reached the examination area, I'd collected an audience. Henry, our facilities manager, was covering his nose with his shirt. 2 other volunteers, Sarah and Tom, stood in the doorway, their expressions a mixture of horror and disgust. "Jesus Christ," Henry said. "What died?" She's alive, I said firmly, laying Elara carefully on the examination table, and she's staying that way. Dr. Patterson, our head veterinarian, was off duty. The only medical staff present was Diane, a vet tech with 2 years of experience. She approached slowly, her face pale. "Martha," she said quietly, "I don't think—" "Don't say it," I interrupted. "She's suffering. Look at her. The kindest thing is to treat her," I finished. "That's the kindest thing." Diane pulled on gloves and gently examined Elara, who remained completely passive throughout. The other volunteers watched from a safe distance, whispering to each other. "The skin is severely compromised," Diane said, her professional mask slipping back into place. "I'm seeing lichenification, that's the thickening and darkening, probably chronic. There's no telling what's underneath. Could be an infection, could be necrosis, could be cancer." "So we run tests," I said. "Martha," Diane's voice was gentle but firm, "even if we can treat this, the cost would be enormous, thousands of dollars. This dog she's in bad shape. And that smell, I've never experienced anything like it. The other animals will be stressed. Our adopters will be put off. The board will have questions. So I'll answer them. The humane thing, stop calling euthanasia the humane thing," I snapped, surprising myself with the anger in my voice. "She's not dying. She's suffering from something treatable. We just need to figure out what." Linda appeared in the doorway. "Martha, honey, maybe you should step outside for a minute. Get some air. You've been exposed to that smell for a while now. You might not be thinking clearly." I looked down at Elara. Her eyes had closed. Her breathing was shallow but steady. "I'm thinking perfectly clearly," I said. "She deserves a chance." Henry spoke up from the hallway. "The board meets tomorrow night. If she's still here, they're going to ask why we're wasting resources on a dog that's probably unadoptable anyway. Even if you fix the skin, who's going to adopt a dog that smells like a landfill?" "Then I'll adopt her myself," I said. The room went quiet. "Martha," Diane said slowly, "you live in a studio apartment. You work full-time. You can barely afford—" "I'll figure it out." Diane sighed, stripping off her gloves. "I can't authorize treatment tonight. Dr. Patterson would need to examine her first, and he won't be in until tomorrow afternoon. The best I can do is get her settled in a kennel with food and water." "And something for pain?" I asked. "I can give her a mild analgesic, but Martha," she hesitated, "that smell is going to permeate the entire kennel area. I'm going to have to isolate her in the quarantine room. Alone." I looked at Elara again. After everything she'd been through, she was going to spend the night alone in a cold room surrounded by the smell of her own suffering. "Can I stay with her?" I asked. "Martha, go home. Get some sleep. There's nothing more you can do tonight." But I stayed anyway. After everyone left, I dragged a chair into the quarantine room and sat beside Elara's kennel. The smell was overwhelming in the enclosed space. My eyes watered, my throat burned. But I stayed. "I'm not giving up on you," I whispered through the kennel bars. "I don't care what they say. We're going to figure this out." Elara's eyes opened briefly, meeting mine. For just a moment, I thought I saw something there, a flicker of awareness, of hope. Then she closed them again and went back to her shallow, labored breathing. I stayed until 3 a.m., when exhaustion finally forced me to go home. I drove with all the windows down, but the smell clung to me. It was in my clothes, my hair, my skin. My studio apartment had never felt so empty. Dr. Patterson arrived at 2 p.m. the next day, which meant I'd called in sick to work and spent the morning pacing the shelter parking lot. He was in his late 50s, with kind eyes and steady hands. He'd seen everything in his 30 years as a veterinarian, but even he paused when he entered the quarantine room. "Martha told me it was bad," he said, pulling on gloves. But this... Can you help her? I asked from the doorway. Let me examine her first. I watched as he carefully inspected Elara's skin, taking his time, making notes on his clipboard. Elara remained passive, as if she'd given up fighting long ago. The lichenification is severe, he said. Probably been developing for months, maybe longer. The skin has thickened as a defense mechanism against constant irritation and scratching. Is it mange? I asked. Possibly, but the smell... He leaned closer, inhaling carefully. This isn't the typical smell of sarcoptic mange, or even demodectic. This is something else. What else could it be? I want to run some tests, skin scraping for mites, blood work, but... He paused, frowning. There's a young vet who just opened a practice downtown, Dr. Sam Justin. Fresh out of school, but brilliant. Worked with exotic animals. Saw a lot of unusual skin conditions. I'd like to give him a call. Dr. Justin arrived within an hour, which told me everything I needed to know about his character. He was maybe 30 years old, with dark skin, bright eyes, and an energy that filled the room. He greeted Elara before greeting us, speaking softly to her as he approached. "Hello, beautiful girl," he said. "Let's see what's going on with you." He conducted the same careful examination Dr. Patterson had, but he kept talking to Elara the entire time, his voice gentle and reassuring. "The smell," he said suddenly, "it's yeasty, not rotting flesh, not infection, yeast." "Yeast?" I repeated. "Malassezia dermatitis," he said, standing up. "I'd bet money on it. It's a fungal overgrowth. The yeast lives naturally on dog skin, but when something compromises the skin barrier, allergies, hormonal imbalances, poor nutrition, it multiplies out of control." "And that causes the smell?" Dr. Patterson asked. "Oh yes, the smell is distinctive once you know what you're smelling for. Old cheese, corn chips, fermented bread. The yeast produces metabolic byproducts that smell exactly like this." He gestured to Elara. "The lichenification happens because the dog scratches constantly. The skin thickens to protect itself. It's a vicious cycle. The damaged skin creates more places for yeast to grow, which causes more itching, which damages the skin further." My heart was pounding. "But it's treatable, right?" "Absolutely treatable," Dr. Justin said, smiling. "Not easy, not quick, but treatable. We need to do a tape strip test to confirm, but I'm 99% certain." The tape strip test took 5 minutes. Dr. Justin pressed clear tape against several areas of Elara's skin, transferred the samples to slides, and examined them under a microscope. "There," he said, gesturing for me to look. I peered through the eyepiece and saw them, small, peanut-shaped organisms scattered across the slide. "That's Malassezia," Dr. Justin explained, completely covering her skin. "That's why she smells, that's why her skin looks like this, and that's why we can fix her." "How?" I asked, the word catching in my throat. "Antifungal shampoo, 2 to 3 times per week, leave it on for 10 minutes before rinsing. Antifungal medication, possibly oral depending on severity. Clean, dry environment, and patience. Lots of patience. The lichenification won't reverse overnight. We're looking at weeks, maybe months of treatment." "How much?" I asked quietly. Dr. Patterson and Dr. Justin exchanged glances. "Retail, you're looking at several $100s," Dr. Patterson said. "The shampoo alone is expensive, and she'll need multiple bottles. The oral medication, if we go that route—" "I can get you the antifungal shampoo at cost," Dr. Justin interrupted. "I have a connection with a veterinary supplier. For a case like this, I'll donate my consultation time. But Martha, she's going to need baths 3 times a week for at least a month, maybe longer. Someone has to commit to that." "I will," I said immediately. The shelter might not approve the expense, Dr. Patterson warned. The board is meeting tonight, and there's already been talk of. Then I'll pay for it myself, I said. Dr. Justin looked at me carefully. Martha, I don't think you understand the commitment. This isn't just money. This is time, energy. This dog is going to smell bad for weeks. She's going to shed skin everywhere. She might be scared of bathing. She might fight you. She might. I understand, I said, cutting him off. I'm doing this. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, let me make some calls. I'll get you the supplies you need. As the two vets discussed treatment protocols, I crouched down beside Elara's kennel. You hear that, girl? I whispered. You're not dying. You're just dealing with some overgrown yeast. We're going to fix you. For the first time since I'd found her, Elara's tail moved. Just a tiny twitch. But it was enough. My bank account showed $82.37 when I checked it on my phone in the shelter parking lot. The rent was due in a week. My electric bill was overdue. I had half a tank of gas and maybe $20 worth of food in my apartment. Dr. Justin's at-cost supplies, 2 bottles of antifungal shampoo, medicated wipes, and ear cleaning solution, came to $60. I stared at the number on my phone screen for a long time. $60 meant I couldn't pay my electric bill. It meant I'd be eating rice and canned beans for the next 2 weeks. It meant I'd have to choose between gas for my car or laundry money. I thought about calling my sister. She'd loan me money, but she'd also lecture me about my dog obsession and remind me that I needed to focus on my own life before I could save every stray animal in the city. I thought about the fundraising page I'd been meaning to set up, but who was going to donate to save a dog that smelled like rot? I couldn't even get a good picture of her. She looked like a monster. My phone buzzed with a text from Linda at the shelter. Board meeting at 7. They're going to ask about the dog. Be prepared. I looked through the window of Dr. Justin's clinic. He was inside, putting together my supply order. Elara was still at the shelter, alone in that quarantine room, probably wondering if anyone was coming back for her. I opened my banking app and transferred $60 to Dr. Justin's clinic account. Balance, $22.37. The electric company could wait. I'd light candles if I had to. When I picked up the supplies, Dr. Justin handed me a stapled packet of papers. This is the treatment protocol, he said. Step by step. How to bathe her, how often, how to check for improvement. I also included information about malassezia for your own education. He paused. Martha, I want to be honest with you. This is going to be hard. The first few baths will be awful. She's going to be scared. The dead skin is going to come off in sheets. It's going to look worse before it looks better. I can handle it, I said. There's something else. He pulled out a bag of dog food. Yeast thrives on carbohydrates and sugars. If you can swing it, put her on a low-carb, grain-free diet. It might be the difference between managing the condition and curing it. I looked at the bag. $45 for the 15-pound size. I can't afford that right now, I said quietly. I know. That's why this one is on me. He pushed the bag toward me. Consider it an investment in her recovery. My eyes burned with sudden tears. Why are you doing this? Because I became a vet to help animals that other people have given up on, he said simply, and because I see that same drive in you. Don't lose it, Martha. The world needs more people like you. I managed to carry everything to my car before I started crying. The shelter board meeting started at 7 p.m. I arrived at 6:45, my hair still damp from the quick shower I'd taken after work. Elara's treatment plan clutched in my hand. The conference room was small and stuffy. 5 board members sat around a table. Richard, no relation, the president, 2 local business owners, a retired vet tech, and a woman I didn't recognize. Linda was there too, looking uncomfortable. Martha, thank you for coming, Richard said. We wanted to discuss the dog you brought in yesterday. Her name is Elara. I said. Yes, Elara. He glanced at his notes. We understand she has a severe skin condition that's causing a significant odor issue. She has malastasia dermatitis. It's a fungal infection. It's treatable. We understand it's treatable, one of the business owners said, but the question is whether it's prudent for the shelter to invest resources in a dog that's going to require extensive medical care when we have 30 other animals that need homes. She's not taking resources from other animals, I said. I'm paying for her treatment myself. That got their attention. You're paying for it? Richard repeated. Yes. I've already purchased the antifungal supplies. Dr. Justin has donated his consultation time. All I'm asking is that she be allowed to stay at the shelter while she undergoes treatment. The board members exchanged glances. Martha, Linda said gently, even if you're paying for treatment, there's the issue of the other animals. The smell is permeating the entire kennel area. We've had 2 potential adopters leave without even looking at the dogs because of it. She's in the quarantine room, isolated. But staff and volunteers still have to go in there, and the smell is seeping into the main area. We can't subject our other animals or our visitors to that. I felt my desperation rising. So what are you saying? Richard cleared his throat. We're saying that if you want to continue Elara's treatment, you'll need to do it somewhere else. We can't keep her here. The room spun. You're kicking her out? We're not kicking anyone out, the retired vet said quickly. We're just saying that the shelter isn't the appropriate environment for her recovery. If you can find another place. I live in a studio apartment. I'm barely making rent. I just spent my electric bill money on her medicine. Where exactly am I supposed to take her? Silence. Martha, Richard said finally, we understand your passion. We really do. But this organization has a responsibility to all the animals in our care, not just one. If keeping Elara here means we lose adoption opportunities for other dogs, that's not a fair trade-off. I looked around the room, at their sympathetic but immovable faces, at Linda, who wouldn't meet my eyes. So that's it? She goes back to the streets because she smells bad? We're not suggesting that, Richard said. We're asking you to find an alternative solution. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. Fine, I'll take her to my apartment. Martha, I'll figure it out, just like I always do. I walked out before anyone could see me cry. At 8:30 p.m., I loaded Elara into my car one more time. She didn't resist, didn't protest, just let me carry her as if she'd learned long ago that fighting was pointless. My studio apartment was on the ground floor of an old building with paper-thin walls. It was 400 square feet of space I could barely afford. A bed, a mini kit, a bathroom the size of a closet, and just enough room for one person to live in relative discomfort. I laid down towels in the corner, made a bed out of old blankets, and settled Elara onto it. The smell filled my apartment immediately. Okay, I said, sitting down beside her. It's just you and me now. We're going to get through this. Elara looked at me with those dull, hopeless eyes, and I wondered if I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life. The first bath was scheduled for Saturday morning, 3 days after I brought Elara home. I'd spent those 3 days preparing, watching YouTube videos about bathing difficult dogs, reading every article I could find about malastasia dermatitis, trying to steel myself for what was coming. Elara hadn't moved much in those 3 days. She ate the food I gave her, small amounts of the grain-free kibble Dr. Justin had donated, but with no enthusiasm. She drank water, she was eliminated when I took her outside, but she showed no interest in anything else. No curiosity, no playfulness, no joy. She slept most of the time, curled in the corner on her blankets, occasionally scratching at her damaged skin with a desperation that broke my heart. The smell in my apartment was overwhelming. I'd bought every candle I could afford at the dollar store. It didn't help. My neighbor had knocked on my door twice to complain. I told her I was dealing with a plumbing issue. Saturday morning, I carried Elara into my bathroom and set her in the tub. She didn't resist. That's what scared me most. She didn't even try to fight. I'd filled the tub with warm water, not too hot, not too cold. I'd mixed the antifungal shampoo according to Dr. Justin's instructions, 1 part shampoo to 2 parts water in a spray bottle. "Okay, girl," I said softly. "This might feel weird, but it's going to help, I promise." I started spraying her body with the diluted shampoo. The reaction was immediate. Elara's entire body went rigid. A low whine escaped her throat, the first sound I'd heard her make since finding her. "It's okay," I said, my voice shaking. "I know it stings, I know, but we have to do this." I worked the shampoo into her skin, trying to be gentle, trying not to hurt her. The black, crusty patches didn't lather like normal dog fur. The shampoo just sat on top, forming a weird, greasy foam. According to the instructions, I had to leave it on for 10 minutes. Those were the longest 10 minutes of my life. Elara trembled the entire time. Not from the cold, the bathroom was warm. She trembled from fear, from pain, from the memory of whatever abuse or neglect had left her in this condition. I sat on the edge of the tub, talking to her constantly. "You're such a good girl, such a brave girl. This is going to make you feel so much better, I promise. Just a few more minutes. You're doing so great." When the timer went off, I started rinsing. That's when things got worse. The dead skin started coming off in sheets, thick black pieces of what looked like leather peeled away from her body, revealing raw, inflamed skin underneath. The water in the tub turned dark. The smell intensified, wet yeast mixing with the antifungal shampoo, creating an odor that made my eyes water. Elara's whining grew louder. She tried to climb out of the tub, her nails scrabbling against the porcelain. "No, no, sweetie, we're almost done. Just a little more." But she was panicking now, her whole body shaking violently. I had to hold her gently, but firmly, trying to keep her in the tub while I rinsed the last of the shampoo from her skin. When I finally lifted her out and wrapped her in towels, she collapsed on the bathroom floor, panting. "I'm sorry," I whispered, sitting down beside her. "I'm so, so sorry." I dried her as best I could, then carried her back to her blanket bed. She didn't look at me, just curled up in a tight ball, her body still trembling. I spent the rest of that Saturday cleaning the bathroom. The tub was coated in a layer of black, greasy residue. Pieces of dead skin were stuck to the sides, floating in the water. It took me an hour of scrubbing to get it clean. That night, I made a note in the journal I'd started tracking Elara's recovery. Day 3, first bath. Traumatic for both of us. Massive shedding of dead skin. Raw patches revealed underneath. Smell. Still rancid, but slightly less intense? Or maybe I'm just getting used to it. Elara was terrified. Didn't trust me after. Have to do this 2 more times this week. God help us both. But when I went to check on Elara before bed, something had changed. She was scratching less. Not much less, but noticeably less. And when I sat down beside her blanket bed, she lifted her head and looked at me. Really looked at me. For the first time, I saw something other than resignation in her eyes. "It helped, didn't it?" I whispered. "You feel a little better?" Her tail moved. Just once. Just a tiny thump against the blanket. But it was enough to make me believe we could do this. I became obsessed with documenting Elara's recovery. Every day, I recorded observations in a notebook I bought at the dollar store. I called it her medical diary, though it was really just my way of convincing myself we were making progress. Day 5, second bath. Less traumatic than first. Elara was still scared, but didn't try to escape. More dead skin shed. Pink, healthy-looking patches emerging on her shoulders and back. Smell, rancid to medicinal. Less like old cheese, more like the antifungal shampoo. Is that progress? Day 8, third bath. Elara actually stood still for most of it. The lichenification on her back legs is softening. I can see the texture changing from elephant skin to something more flexible. She ate her entire breakfast for the first time. Smell? Medicinal to clean? No, not clean, but different, less overwhelming. I can breathe in my apartment without wanting to gag. Day 10. Caught Elara playing with a toy I'd left on the floor. Just batting it with her paw, but playing. Haven't seen her do anything playful before. The patches on her face are clearing. I can see her actual fur color now. Silver blue, like a pit bull. She's beautiful under there. Smell? Definitely medicinal now. The corn chip smell is almost gone. Day 14. Fourth bath. Breakthrough. Elara walked into the bathroom on her own when I called her. Didn't fight me at all. She knows the baths make her feel better. Her skin is transforming before my eyes. The thick black patches are almost entirely gone from her body. Just her legs and undercarriage left. Smell? Clean, with a slight medicinal undertone. I can have my window open without my neighbor complaining. But not everything was going well. My electricity had been shut off on day 11. I'd gone 3 days without power before I'd swallowed my pride and called my sister for a loan. She'd given it to me, but not without the lecture I'd been dreading. "Martha, you can't keep doing this," she'd said. "You can't keep choosing animals over your own basic needs. It's temporary. Once Elara is healthy, I can get her adopted. And then there'll be another animal, and another. You're going to end up homeless, and for what? These dogs don't even know you're sacrificing everything for them." But that's where my sister was wrong. Elara knew. I could see it in the way she watched me now, the way her tail wagged when I came home from work, the way she pressed against my legs when I sat on the floor beside her, as if trying to comfort me the way I'd comforted her. On day 17, something remarkable happened. I was eating dinner on the floor, rice and canned black beans, my staple meal, when Elara came over and sat beside me. She rested her head on my knee and just stayed there. Her skin was soft now, still pink and healing, but soft. The smell was almost entirely gone. She was starting to look like a real dog again. "You're going to be okay," I whispered, running my hand over her back. "Look how far you've come." She looked up at me with clear, bright eyes. Not resigned, not hopeless, alive. Day 17, major milestone. Elara's skin is 80% clear. Only small patches of lichenification remain on her back legs. Fur is growing thick and healthy. Color? Gorgeous silver blue with a white chest patch. She's stunning. Smell? Clean. Completely clean. I can't smell anything but a normal dog anymore. She's affectionate now, following me around the apartment. I started this journey thinking I was saving her, realizing she might be saving me too. Day 20, fifth bath. This one was the easiest one yet. Elara stood still and calm, occasionally wagging her tail. Minimal shedding, just regular dog bathing now. Her skin is almost completely healed. Dr. Justin visited today to check on her progress, said she's a miracle case, wants to document her recovery for a veterinary journal. I'm just happy she's happy. On day 24, I took a photograph. Not the first photograph I'd taken. I'd been documenting her progress all along, but this was the first one where she looked like the after photo. Elara stood in my apartment, her silver blue coat gleaming in the sunlight from the window. Her skin was healthy, her eyes were bright, her tail was wagging. She was beautiful. I posted the photo on my personal social media with a simple caption. "This is Elara. 4 weeks ago, I found her in a dumpster because she smelled bad. Turns out she wasn't dying. She was just dealing with a treatable fungal infection called Malassezia dermatitis. Never let anyone tell you a dog is beyond saving." The post got 50 shares in the first hour. By that evening, it had been shared 500 times. By the next morning, it was viral. The call from Richard came on day 26. "Martha, he said without preamble. "We need to talk about Elara." My stomach dropped. What about her? "The board has received feedback about the situation. Some of our volunteers saw your social media post. It's being shared widely, and people are asking questions about why the shelter kicked out a treatable dog." I closed my eyes. I hadn't meant to cause problems for the shelter. I just wanted to share Alara's story. "I never said the shelter kicked her out," I said carefully. "You didn't have to. People filled in the blanks themselves. We're getting calls, emails. Some of them aren't pleasant." He paused. "There's going to be an emergency board meeting tomorrow night. They want to discuss the shelter's protocols for medical cases." "Richard, I didn't mean to—" "I know, but Martha, there's something else. Some of the board members are suggesting that Elara needs to be removed from your apartment." "What? Why?" "There are concerns about your living situation. Your apartment is small, you're working full-time. There are questions about whether you can provide adequate long-term care for a large breed dog." I felt anger rising in my chest. "I've been providing adequate care for almost a month. She's healthy now. She's happy." "I believe you, but the board, there are legal considerations, liability issues. If something happens to Elara while she's in your care, nothing is going to happen to her." "Martha, please, just come to the meeting tomorrow. Bring Elara if you can. Let people see her recovery for themselves. That might help." The emergency board meeting was held in the same conference room where I'd been told to take Elara somewhere else. This time, the room was packed, not just the 5 board members, but volunteers, staff members, and several people I didn't recognize. I later learned they were local media and animal welfare advocates who'd been following Elara's story online. I brought Elara with me. The transformation was immediate and dramatic. People who'd been whispering and shuffling papers went quiet when we walked in. Elara, my beautiful, healed, silver-blue girl, walked calmly beside me, her tail wagging, her eyes bright. "My God," someone whispered. "That's the same dog? She's gorgeous." Richard stood up. "Thank you all for coming. As you know, we're here to discuss the situation regarding Elara and to address concerns that have been raised about the shelter's protocols for medical cases." He gestured to me. "Martha, would you like to say anything?" I stood up, my hands shaking. "I found Elara in a dumpster 4 weeks ago," I said. "She was covered in what looked like black, dead skin. She smelled so bad that people couldn't be in the same room with her. Everyone assumed she was dying. Everyone suggested euthanasia." I paused, looking around the room. But she wasn't dying. She had Malassezia dermatitis, a fungal infection. It's treatable with antifungal shampoo and basic care. I pulled out my medical diary and held it up. This is Elara's recovery journal. Every bath, every milestone, every smell changes. It took $60 in supplies and 4 weeks of 3 times weekly baths. That's it. $60 and commitment. I set the journal on the table and crouched down beside Elara. Look at her. She's not suffering. She's not unadoptable. She's a healthy, happy dog who deserves a home. I looked directly at Richard. The shelter told me to remove her because she smelled bad, because she was inconvenient, because she might affect adoption rates for other dogs. My voice broke. But isn't that exactly the kind of dog that shelters are supposed to help? The ones that no one else wants? The room was silent. Then Linda spoke up. "Martha's right," she said quietly. "I was there that night. I was one of the people who suggested euthanasia. I thought it was the kindest option." She looked at Elara. "I was wrong. We were all wrong." Dr. Patterson stood up. "I've been a veterinarian for 30 years. I've seen severe cases of Malassezia before, but I've never seen one this advanced make such a complete recovery. Martha's documentation is meticulous. Her care has been exemplary. This dog should have died. Instead, she's thriving." One of the board members, the woman I hadn't recognized at the first meeting, raised her hand. "I'm Julie Martinez," she said. "I'm a lawyer specializing in animal welfare. I've been following Elara's story online. I have a question for the board." She looked at Richard. "What are the shelter's current protocols for dogs with treatable but expensive medical conditions?" Richard shifted uncomfortably. "We evaluate each case individually. We consider the cost, the likelihood of recovery, and the impact on our other animals. And who makes that evaluation? The head veterinarian and the board secretary. And what if a volunteer disagrees with that evaluation? They're welcome to voice their concerns, but ultimately the decision rests with the shelter administration." "Yes." Julie nodded slowly. "Here's my concern. Martha found a dog with a treatable condition. She was willing to pay for treatment herself, but the shelter still forced her to remove the dog from the premises because of an odor issue. That sets a dangerous precedent. It suggests that the shelter prioritizes convenience over animal welfare." "That's not fair," one of the business owners said. "We have to consider all the animals in our care." "I agree," Julie said, "but you also have to consider cases like this, extreme cases that require extra effort but are still completely treatable. If Martha hadn't been willing to take Elara home, what would have happened to her?" No one answered. Julie looked at me. "Martha, do you still live in that studio apartment?" "Yes." "And Elara is with you full-time?" "Yes." "How's that working out?" I looked down at Elara, who was sitting calmly at my feet. "Honestly, my apartment is too small. She needs more space. She needs a yard. She needs room to run and play." My voice caught. "She deserves better than what I can give her, but I can't afford anything bigger." "What if," Julie said slowly, "the shelter created a position specifically for cases like this, a medical foster coordinator, someone who could take animals with treatable conditions, provide care, and document their recovery, with support from the shelter for supplies and veterinary care?" The room went quiet again. "That's an interesting idea," Richard said carefully, "but we'd need funding for that position." "I'll fund it," said a voice from the back of the room. Everyone turned. An older man stood up. I recognized him vaguely. He'd been at a few fundraising events. "Daniel Morris," he said. "I'm a retired physician. I've been following Elara's story. What Martha did, documenting every step, turning a hopeless case into a success story, that's the kind of work that changes people's minds about shelter animals." He looked at me. "I'll donate $50,000 to create a special needs rehabilitation program at the shelter. On one condition, Martha runs it." I stared at him in shock. "Mr. Morris, I'm not a veterinarian. I'm not even a vet tech. I stock shelves at a grocery store." "You saved a dog everyone else gave up on," he said simply. "That's the only qualification that matters." The board went into deliberation. It took them 20 minutes to come back with a decision. "We're accepting Mr. Morris's donation, and we're creating the position of Special Needs Rehabilitation Lead. Martha, if you're willing, the position is yours. Part-time, $15 an hour, with medical supply stipend and veterinary support." I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. "There's one more thing," Richard said, smiling slightly. "The position comes with access to the shelter's rehabilitation apartment. It's a small unit on the property, about 600 square feet, with a fenced yard. It's yours if you want it." I looked down at Elara. She looked back at me, her tail wagging. "Yes," I whispered. "Yes, we'll take it." Moving into the rehabilitation apartment took 3 days. It wasn't much, one bedroom, a bathroom, a small kitchen, and a living area that opened onto a fenced yard. But compared to my studio, it felt like a mansion. More importantly, Elara had space. She spent the first day just exploring the yard, sniffing every corner, wagging her tail nonstop. Watching her run, actually run, with joy and freedom, made every difficult moment of the past month worth it. But we weren't done yet. On day 34, I gave Elara what I thought would be a routine bath. It turned into the great shedding. I'd noticed over the previous few days that Alara's coat was looking strange, patchy in places, duller than it had been. I'd mentioned it to Dr. Justin during our check-in. "That's normal," he had assured me. "The fur that grew during the infection might not be healthy. She's probably going to shed it and grow a fresh coat. It'll look worse before it looks better." Again. He was right. I started the bath as normal. Warm water, antifungal shampoo. We were down to once-a-week maintenance baths now. Gentle scrubbing. But when I started rinsing, fur started coming off in massive clumps. Not just regular shedding, entire patches of hair sloughing off in my hands, revealing the healthy silver blue undercoat beneath. "Oh my God!" I breathed. Elara didn't seem bothered. She stood calmly in the tub, occasionally shaking, sending fur flying everywhere. The bathroom looked like a fur bomb had gone off, but underneath all that damaged coat, a completely healthy dog was emerging. By the time I finished rinsing, Alara's coat was shorter, but incredibly soft. The silver blue color was deeper, more vibrant. The white patch on her chest gleamed. I dried her and then just sat on the bathroom floor, staring. "You're perfect," I whispered. She wagged her tail and licked my face. That night, I updated her medical diary. Day 34. The Great Shedding. Elara lost about 60% of her coat during her bath tonight. What's left is healthy, soft, and gorgeous. She looks like a completely different dog. Actually, she is a completely different dog. The sick, hopeless animal I pulled from that dumpster is gone. This is Elara. Happy, healthy, whole. I keep thinking about all the people who wanted to give up on her, all the people who said euthanasia was the humane choice, all the people who thought she was beyond saving. They were all wrong, and I'm so, so glad I didn't listen. On day 40, I brought Elara back to the shelter. Not as a patient, as a success story. The weekly volunteer meeting was packed. Word had gotten around that I was bringing Elara, and people wanted to see her. I'd put a bright blue collar on her, the kind that matched her coat color. She walked beside me calmly, her tail wagging, greeting everyone she met with gentle affection. The volunteers who'd been there the night I brought her in couldn't believe their eyes. "That's not the same dog," Henry said, shaking his head. "That can't be the same dog." "It is," I said, smiling. Sarah, one of the volunteers who'd covered her nose that first night, crouched down in front of Elara. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, running her hand over Alara's soft fur. I thought you were dying. I thought we were being cruel by keeping you alive." Elara licked her face. Linda had tears in her eyes. "Martha, what you did, I don't think I've ever seen anything like it." "It wasn't complicated," I said. "It was just commitment and $60 in supplies." Dr. Patterson arrived a few minutes later, carrying a folder. "I wanted to give everyone an update on Elara's medical status," he said, opening the folder. "I've been monitoring her for the past month, and I can confidently say she's made a complete recovery. The malassezia is gone. Her skin is healthy. Her blood work is perfect. She's about 2 years old, roughly 50 pounds, and ready for adoption." "Adoption?" I repeated, my heart sinking. I knew this moment was coming. I'd known from the beginning. Elara wasn't supposed to be mine permanently. She was supposed to be a success story, a case that proved animals with medical issues could be saved. But somewhere along the way, she'd become my dog. Dr. Patterson looked at me. "Unless, Martha, have you considered adopting her yourself?" I'd thought about it. Of course I'd thought about it. But my new position was part-time. My income was still barely enough to cover rent and food, and the whole point of the special needs rehabilitation program was to save more animals, not just one. "I can't," I said quietly. Not if I'm going to help other dogs like her. We understand, Richard said, and we've had several adoption applications already, people who saw her story online. Good families. I nodded, forcing a smile. That's good. That's what she deserves. But that night, alone in the rehabilitation apartment, I cried. Elara curled up beside me on the couch, her head in my lap, as if she knew something was wrong. You're going to go to a wonderful home, a family with kids, maybe, or someone with a big yard, someone who can give you everything you deserve. She looked up at me with those bright, intelligent eyes, and I wondered if she understood that I was saying goodbye. The adoption event was scheduled for Saturday. 6 families had submitted applications for Elara. All of them were qualified. All of them had experience with pit bulls. All of them had seen her story and wanted to give her a home. I'd spent the week preparing myself, reminding myself that this was the goal, that Elara deserved a permanent home, not a foster situation in a shelter rehabilitation apartment. But when Saturday morning arrived, I couldn't get out of bed. Elara sat beside me, her head tilted, concerned. I'm being stupid, I told her. You're going to have a great life. I'm happy for you. Really? My phone rang. It was Dr. Justin. Martha, can you come to the shelter? There's something I need to show you. When I arrived, the shelter parking lot was packed with cars, more than I'd ever seen for a regular adoption event. What's going on? I asked Dr. Justin. He smiled. Come see. He led me to the conference room. It was filled with people, not just the board members and staff, but volunteers, donors, and people I'd never seen before. And at the front of the room, on a large screen, was Elara's story. Every photograph I'd taken, every journal entry from her medical diary, every milestone of her recovery. We've been working on this all week, Dr. Justin explained. A presentation about Elara's case, about Malassezia dermatitis, about how treatable these hopeless cases can be. Julie Martinez stood up. Martha, your documentation was so thorough that we were able to create an entire educational program around it. We've already had 3 other shelters reach out asking to implement similar special needs rehabilitation programs. But that's not all, Richard said, smiling. Show her, Daniel. Daniel Morris, the man who donated the initial funding, stepped forward. Martha, when I offered to fund this program, I thought $50,000 would be enough for a year, maybe 2. He pulled out a laptop and turned it toward me. This is the donation page we set up when Elara's story went viral. In the past 2 weeks, we've raised $180,000 from people all over the country who were inspired by what you did. I stared at the number on the screen. $180,000? For the Special Needs Rehabilitation Program, confirmed Daniel, which means we can expand, hire additional staff, save more animals. He paused. We'd like to make your position full-time, with benefits, and we'd like to name the program after Elara. I couldn't speak. There's one more thing, Linda said, stepping forward with an envelope. The 6 families who applied to adopt Elara all submitted letters explaining why they wanted her. They're all wonderful. But there was a 7th application that came in late. We wanted you to read it. She handed me the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper. To the Riverside Animal Shelter Board. I would like to formally apply to adopt Elara. I realize I may not be the most qualified applicant. I don't have a big house or a large yard. I don't have years of pit bull experience. I'm just a part-time shelter employee who lives in a small apartment. But I'm the person who found her, who bathed her when she was terrified, who documented every step of her recovery, who chose her over my electric bill and my own comfort. I'm the person who loves her. If you'll let me, I'd like to give Elara the permanent home she deserves, not as a foster, not as a rehabilitation case, as a family. Respectfully, Martha. I looked up. confused. I didn't write this. I know, Richard said, smiling. We did. We've been watching you with Elara for the past 6 weeks. The way you look at her, the way she looks at you. Martha, she's already your dog. We were just waiting for you to realize it. But the families? We called them, Linda said. We explained the situation. Every single one of them said they understood that Elara belonged with you. I looked at Elara, who was sitting calmly at my feet. The rehabilitation apartment is yours permanently, rent-free, part of your employment package, and Elara comes with it. We thought about calling the program the Second Chance Project, but then we realized this isn't just about giving animals second chances. It's about giving people like you the chance to do what you're meant to do. So we're calling it the Elara Initiative, Beyond the Smell. I sat down before my legs gave out. I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep doing what you're doing, Dr. Justin said. Say you'll take on the hard cases, the smelly ones, the ones everyone else gives up on. Say you'll show people that hopeless is just a word, not a truth. I looked at Elara one more time. She looked back at me with those bright, intelligent eyes, and I knew exactly what to say. Yes. 3 months later, I stood in the same conference room giving a presentation to 50 veterinarians and shelter workers from across the state. This is Elara, I said, pulling up a photograph on the screen. A small terrier mix, her skin thick and black, her eyes dull and hopeless. I found her 2 weeks ago behind a gas station. She smells like fermented corn chips. Her skin is lichenified. She's been diagnosed with severe Malassezia dermatitis. I pulled up the next slide, a bath-by-bath progression, just like Elara's. This is her on day 7, already showing improvement. This is day 14. You can see the healthy skin emerging. And this is day 21. The final photo showed a clean, healthy terrier with bright eyes and a wagging tail. The room erupted in applause. Elara wasn't born sick, I said, echoing the words from my presentation template. She was made sick by neglect, by a system that looked the other way, by people who thought she wasn't worth saving. I clicked to the final slide. Elara, running in the yard behind the rehabilitation apartment, her silver blue coat gleaming in the sunlight. But she was wrong. They were all worth saving. Every single one of them. I looked out at the audience. Don't let standard procedure be an excuse for giving up. Don't let too expensive or too difficult or too smelly be reasons to choose euthanasia over treatment. These animals deserve better. They deserve second chances. I paused. They deserve people who won't give up on them just because they smell bad. After the presentation, people lined up to ask questions, to request copies of my protocols, to ask how they could implement similar programs at their own shelters. But one woman stayed back, waiting until everyone else had left. "Martha?" she said quietly. I turned. She was young, maybe mid-20s, with tired eyes and nervous hands. "I found a dog yesterday, behind a restaurant. He smells terrible, like old cheese. My boyfriend said I should call animal control. That's not my problem." She pulled out her phone and showed me a photo. A large mixed-breed dog with black, crusty skin, dull eyes, the unmistakable signs of severe Malassezia dermatitis. "But I saw your presentation, and I thought, maybe he doesn't have to die. Maybe someone could help him." I looked at the photo for a long moment. Then I smiled. "Bring him to the Riverside Animal Shelter," I said. "Ask for Martha. We'll take care of him." Her eyes filled with tears. "Really? Really? What's his name?" "I've been calling him Chance." I nodded, thinking of Elara, of all the animals that had passed through the Elara initiative in the past 3 months. "Perfect name," I said. "Bring Chance tomorrow. His second chance starts now." Elara wasn't born sick. She was made sick by neglect and a system that looked the other way. Don't let standard procedure or beyond saving be excuses for giving up on animals with treatable conditions. If you believe every shelter animal deserves thorough medical evaluation and a real chance at recovery, share Ilara's story to help us demand better standards for animal shelters everywhere. Subscribe to join our mission of giving a voice to the voiceless. Follow the journey of the Elara initiative as we prove, one smelly dog at a time, that hopeless is just a word, not a truth. We'll see you in the next rescue story.